I'd say like the first half hour of Buddy, maybe in the first 40 minutes, scratched this nostalgia itch that just was perfect. Everything was clicking. I enjoyed it. And then halfway through, it just hit a wall. It completely slammed on the brakes, and it was never really able to recover that high in the beginning of the film for me. It tried, it peaked again, but it never hit those highs. Some props and credit where credit is due. I have loved the marketing campaign of this film. I think it's been intriguing. It was almost reminiscent of the first Cloverfield movie, where they didn't give a lot away, and there was this air of mystery regarding what the film would be. I feel like Buddy is following in those footsteps. Obviously, we know Buddy is the titular character. We know it involves this mix of Barney, Pee Wee's Playhouse, a little bit of Bear in the Big Blue House, Teletubbies, all those um, educational kid shows from the late '90s onward. It involves that type of vibe. But outside of that, we really didn't know what was going on in the film or what we were to expect. And I like that. I like the mystery. I like the intriguing aspect of the marketing campaign. I know the mascot Buddy made a few rounds at horror conventions and at some film festivals. That was very cool. I do think the character of Buddy will most likely surpass what this film is able to do, which is cool. Anytime there's a possibility of a new horror icon, I'm on board, and I want to see more of Buddy. I'm just a little disappointed the film didn't give me everything I wanted. So to start off with the good, production design was amazing. It literally read like a show I would have grown up watching, and it just hit and checked off all the boxes of what makes those educational kids '90s shows so enthralling. The kid actors did an amazing job. They balanced actually acting within the film and then acting the part of kid extras on a kids show, kind of that over over expectant happiness that they're required to demonstrate. Um, the girl who played Freddie, tremendous work. I was really enamored with her character, with how she's able to portray a child who's literally frightened, but at the same time she's able to click on this. Oh, here's my happy face. Here's what I have to do. And there's some names sprinkled throughout this film. Michael Shannon's in it. Um, we have Topher Grace. There were a couple of cool little. Patton Oswalt plays a like a Dora like backpack. So there were some big names attached here, and of course, Keegan Michael Key is Buddy. Amazing work with the voice. It was warm. It was inviting. Very reminiscent of Barney, but I do think that's what the character is modeled after. Um, so the acting is great. The production design, amazing. It looks great. I love how realized the world of Buddy is. I just wish we stayed in the world of Buddy. So the film doesn't set up anything in particular. It just thrusts you into episodes of its Buddy. And again, the production design was so amazing. It felt like I was watching something that I grew up watching. But as you continue on with the episodes and as they transpire, things get a little bit more eerie and more unsettling with how Buddy interacts with some of the kids. And eventually, he ends up killing one of the kids off screen. And other characters on the show begin to worry, particularly Freddy starts bringing this to the attention of other kids. Hey, there's something going on with Buddy. What's happening here? Buddy is joined by Betty, who's a rabbit. She's not fully evil. She's not evil, period. Like Buddy is. She does try to appease Buddy though, especially towards the end of the movie, and that leads to her death. And we do have a cast of human characters as well within the world of Buddy, which is very reminiscent of like Mr. Rogers. We have Melvin Miles, we have Nurse Nancy, and eventually we do have Nurse Grace down the road when Grace travels from the real world into the world of Buddy. Um, and I really like the use of puppetry that wasn't the smoothest in the world. Like they look like puppets, and that was very reminiscent of Pee Wee's Playhouse. Um, and then Michael Shannon voices like a Howdy Doody character, which I thought was realized very well. I did not like how that character and Clint Howard's character, who was like a runaway child from the world of its Buddy, um, like made out, it started tinkering on like Sausage Party, Seth Rogen type humor, where it's just weird for the sake of weird, which I didn't enjoy. But prior to all that, the film is very funny. The film has a very slick, dark sense of humor that worked out really well. I like the unsettling, soulless eyes on the characters just staring the kids down, and my audience seemed to have a really good time with those moments of levity throughout the film. I think this film could have been a cult classic in the making because of how experimental it was in the beginning. If we would have kept the framework of we're just watching an episode and another episode and another episode and kept that throughout the entire runtime of the film, I think this film would have been a slam dunk. Obviously, there would have been some plot devices that would have to have been handled a little bit differently, like like Grace meeting up with her daughter again and remember like, oh my god, there's my daughter. But I think a skilled writer would have been able to circumnavigate those issues, that removing this idea of, oh, there's a real world and there's Buddy's world. um, and in the real world we're going into a more traditional narrative. Those problems could have been circumnavigated by a very skillful writer. I expected something along the lines of like Buffet Infinity, or like Casper Kelly's previous work, Too Many Cooks, where it was within the parameters of what was established in the beginning. Um, I, just the moment that we as an audience are taking from Buddy's world and into the real world, and we try to establish traditional narrative tools, the film just screeched to a halt. It took a nosedive, and now we're meeting Grace and her husband and her kids, and we're on this mystery with them where she thinks she had another child, and obviously it's connected to Buddy. And then we get like sketch comedy moments where she hires like a medium, and it felt like I was watching a different film, and not in the sense of, oh wow, this is new and interesting. It made me miss what I was watching prior. It made me miss Buddy, and the film completely lost steam, and it started losing me. Christine Milioti plays Grace, the mom in the real world, and I love her. She did an amazing job with the role. I just wish that it wasn't as boring as what it was. I wish they would have incorporated her a different way. I don't need something as experimental as, like, say, Skinamarink, but when this film started, I thought the whole runtime was going to be us watching these episodes and them getting more eerie and eerie, and the film unfolding in that fashion. Like I said, as soon as we get to the real world, the film just stopped holding my interest as much as the first third did. And then within that lull, I started thinking of the things that I did not enjoy about this film. One thing I kept seeing all over um, online reviews and tweets and what have you is how gory and sadistic this film was. It was not gory. It was not that violent. And again, in that middle part, I was wondering, a lot of the deaths have been off screen. Where's this gore coming? Maybe they're saving it for the big end. And there was some gore. Betty the Bunny gets decapitated. A pretty gnarly scene where Buddy ends up cutting his like thighs to be able to fit down a well. That was cool, but it was not the gore fest I was promised. With how this film was discussed online, I was expecting balls to the wall craziness, along the lines of like Happy Tree Friends. If you guys remember that cartoon, or something like Meet the Feebles, which is like Peter Jackson's early work, or Bad Taste, or Brain Dead, which I think was called Dead Alive here in America. So I expected something of that nature, something that crazy and over the top violence. Um, Kind of like how The Substance was, for the most part, pretty restrained throughout its runtime, and then the end was like a bloodbath spectacular. That's what I wanted from Buddy. Just because I was told it was gory, the middle bored me. It was having difficulty holding my interest, so I started kind of pondering. I'm like, what is up with this movie? Where's this? Where's that? Um, but yeah, I thought it could really fix itself in the finale, and it sadly did not. It's not to say that I need the film to be gore for the sake of gore. If we would have kept along the lines of keeping that untraditional narrative structure of the episodes, I think the film would have been a really unsettling meditation on child abuse and how children are groomed to trust figures of authority and not question those figures, even when there's situations that make them uncomfortable. Because that's the vibe I got from the beginning of the film. It was eerie and unsettling. And yeah, there were jokes sprinkled throughout, but due to the fact that these are kids that are put in harm's way, it adds that extra layer of there's a grooming aspect where Buddy would force the kids to hug him and force the kids to tell him that they love him and express their love to him. And he would get angry when they didn't follow what they did or what they were expected to do. That was scary on a completely different level. And it's not to say you couldn't sprinkle humor into that meditation if that's the way that the film decided to go, but it didn't go that way. And then at the end, it tried to go the route of social commentary. Um, Freddy does eventually escape. All her friends are dead, mostly off screen deaths. But what are you gonna do? Um, and she's taken into what appears to be like a research facility of some kind. And we're made to know that Buddy is not the only unicorn that exists in the real world. As a TV character, there's two others. So I don't know if that's some like putting in the seeds where we want to do more, or we want to have sequels. But it looks like this research facility is looking at ways of brainwashing children, indoctrinating children, getting them hooked to the show. Which obviously then leads to Buddy reaching through the television screen and pulling them into his world, which was very reminiscent of that Hulu film, Mr. Crockett. Again, just if they didn't include the real world, this would have been a film that could completely stand on its own. But since we did that, it was reminiscent of Mr. Crockett, which I feel like that film played a lot better with this idea of children in danger and looking at figures of authority and how do you stick up for yourself for your child, who do you trust, who don't you trust, and this idea of blind leadership and blind love when you're a child listening to an adult. But I digress here. I think why I'm so upset is because I wanted to love this movie. I loved the aesthetic. I loved the character of Buddy. I loved how he looked. And again, I think he did an amazing job with the voice. I loved the puppetry. It reminded me of Pee Wee's Playhouse, and I'm a huge Pee Wee Herman fan. Um, it was made for my age group. This is very much a film that's geared at millennials who would have that flair for the nostalgia of that era of TV children's programming. But when I left the theater, I felt hollow. And this feeling is, it's my fault. My expectations were way too high. I did completely give into the hype train of this film. I expected this gory, bloody, fun masterpiece. I expected something that could have come straight from the 80s in terms of its like wacky violence and disregard for everything. But instead, I got a film that hooked me in the beginning, bored me in the middle, tried to regain me at the end by going back into Buddy's world. But at that point, I was too far gone. And then it tried to tack on some social commentary in the end that seemed misguided and just kind of. It felt like it was thrown in there because someone said, "What are you saying with this film? Let's be overt in it so the audience understands we're trying to make a statement about children's programming and the relationship that children have with these characters or these figures of authority." So at the end of the day, I left the movie theater disappointed. I wanted to leave the theater um, in love. I wanted to leave the theater and be like, oh my God, I got to pre order this film and find, movie swag and promo material for this film because it's so cool and I want a buddy plush. I still want a buddy plush. But overall, the film was not what it was promised. It did not deliver as intended, and it makes me sad. Does that mean the film's horrible? Absolutely not. It's enjoyable for what it is. It could have been stellar, but it stops itself short from being stellar. I just wish there wasn't so much hyperbole online about how amazing this film is, because it made my experience not that good, just because I wanted it to be what I wanted it to be. Um, and it felt like a Frankenstein, where the first act matched the third act, but then the middle felt like it was a completely different movie. But it wasn't enough to create a wonderful monster altogether. It felt disjointed. It felt very patchworky. And then again, the little bottle cap at the end there with the social commentary just fell flat. It sounds a bit negative, but I'm just being hard on the film because, again, expectations were way too high on my part, and that is my doing, just because I was really swept up in all the positive PR the film got online. That being said, if what the little seeds that were thrown in there actually do come to fruition, and we do get a sequel, I'd be down to explore the other two unicorns that were briefly talked about, or briefly shown when Freddy is in that research facility. Um, if the film is going to go the route of exploring what that research facility is, I'm okay. I don't need it. Think of the back rooms and how the back rooms ended with the protagonist, the therapist, being taken in by async and being told what the back rooms could possibly be. They obviously didn't know completely what it was, but then kind of explained to the therapist, hey, this is what's going on, here's what we think. I'd watch a backroom sequel if it was about the back rooms. I don't really care so much about async. I'd watch a Jurassic Park or Jurassic World sequel if it's about the park or the dinosaurs. I don't really care about the shadowy um, InGen, I think it's called, the company. It's cool. I don't need to know how the sausage is made. Um, Same with this film. I want to be in Buddy's world. I want to meet more puppets. I want to see more how Buddy operates. And I would be down to explore exactly what Buddy is, because at the end he does morph into something kind of like what we saw in Death of a Unicorn, that A24 film. It kind of looks like that, like a really weird Power Ranger villain type unicorn. I'm interested in that. I do not care about this shadowy organization that decides to brainwash kids and send them into the TV world. That is it for this one. We'll see you guys next time. Want to say bye, Opal? It's raining. She's a little scared.